A woman in Coweta County says that Georgia Power is trying to take her home, saying they're using eminent domain in a way that is not accurate, she says.
This is an outrageous, unprecedented slush fund that you set up. Simple question, will individuals who assaulted Capitol Hill police officers be eligible for this fund?
Well, as it makes plain, anybody is
The world consumes about 100 million barrels of oil every single day, while the war has blocked about 14 million barrels of oil and refined products from getting to the market every single day.
Power that has been constructed where these companies and the people running these companies get to make decisions that affect billions of people's lives around the world, and those billions of people do not get any.
Welcome to the sacrificed.
Tonight, dangerous wildfires raging in the west. Thick plumes of smoke from Colorado to California, turning skies dark. The Sandy fire roaring through a residential neighborhood an hour outside of Los Angeles. Evacuation warnings issued as flames rapidly spread. You can still see flames coming from this burned down home. Firefighters are sending water onto the property to try to prevent embers from being carried to other parts of the neighborhood. Neighbors shaken by how close the flames got.
They saved our home, thank God. The Lord just put his hand of protection over our property.
Noelle Hankinson says she rushed to pick up her 13-year-old son from school. The smoke close by.
I wanted to get here and get him, so scared about, the flames moving this way.
In Colorado, firefighters racing to put out this wildfire. Crews tackling the flames from above. This charred building still smoldering. Meanwhile, menacing funnel clouds tearing through America's heartland after a weekend of severe weather.
Wow. Oh my God.
This twister ripping through a field in Nebraska.
Breaking.
Debris flying through the air as a funnel cloud forms. The damage in St. Paul, devastating, tearing these homes from their foundations, leaving behind crumpled cars. On the East Coast, sweltering temperatures setting in. An extreme start to the week being felt coast to coast.
Dana, let's get back to that wildfire. We see that burnt out house there just behind you, but it seems like firefighters were able to stop it, saving the rest of that neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, Tom. At one point, winds whipped more than 20 miles per hour. But luckily, firefighters did a great job knocking down this fire.
Hey, you guys. My name's Ansley. I live in Coweta County, Georgia. I wanted to come out here and show you guys firsthand what is happening to our county. So as you can see behind me, we have these power lines. Georgia Power is going to expand these lines to support power to the data center. What they're doing to homeowners is they're taking their homes. This is my childhood home behind me. It is being taken by force by Georgia Power. Homeowners in this county do not have a choice. It is called eminent domain, and they will take it.
Well, this is one way to ensure that people own nothing, as the WEF has long desired. Climate change, well, we don't need that anymore when you've got AI and you've got data centers. Politicians could just take your home from you. That's exactly what's happening.
Well, this is one way to ensure that people own nothing, as the WEF has long desired. Climate change, well, we don't need that anymore when you've got AI and you've got data centers. Politicians could just take your home from you.
There is a system of power that has been constructed where these companies and the people running these companies get to make decisions that affect billions of people's lives around the world, and those billions of people do not get any say in how it goes. The industry is designed in a way that is extremely inhumane.
So why are they doing it? I mean, you've interviewed all these people. I think it's, 300 people in total? 80 or 90 of them from OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT. Why do you think they're doing it?
I think it's because they're driven by an imperial agenda, and that is why I call these companies empires of AI.
What do you mean by an imperial agenda? What does that term mean?
Empire is the only metaphor that I've ever found to fully encapsulate all of the dimensions of what these companies do and the scale that they operate and what motivates them to do what they do. And there are many parallels that you see between what I call the empires of AI and the empires of old. They lay claim to resources that are not their own in the pursuit of training these models. That's the data of individuals, the intellectual property of artists, writers, and creators. They're land grabbing in order to build these supercomputer facilities for training the next generation models. Second, they exploit an extraordinary amount of labor. They contract hundreds of thousands of workers all around the world, including in the US, to ultimately make these technologies. We can talk about that more. And they also design their tools to be labor automating so that when the technologies are deployed, it also affects labor rights because it erodes away labor rights. And this is a political choice that they have. Third, they monopolize knowledge production, so they project this idea that they're the only ones that really understand how the technology works. And so if the public doesn't like it, it's because they don't actually know enough about this technology. They do this to the public, they do this to policymakers, and they've also captured the majority of the scientists that are working on understanding the limitations and capabilities of AI.
And this is a conversation that's going viral right now on TikTok. A woman in Coweta County says that Georgia Power is trying to take her home, saying they're using eminent domain in a way that is not accurate, she says, or fair. She says that move is to support a massive data center that's not even in her county of Coweta County. It's to support what's happening in neighboring Fayette County. 11 Alive's Chase Howell had a chance to talk to this homeowner who says the power company is unfairly forcing her out.
Ansley Brown says her mom bought this property in 2003 and doesn't think it's fair that the government or a utility company can come in and say, hey, we need this property for public benefit and we have the legal power to take it.
This is a real David and Goliath story, in my opinion. We're going against a $2 billion power company for our home.
That's Ansley Brown. She says Georgia Power is wanting to demolish her childhood home in Coweta County to make way for power lines that will replace the old ones and support a data center in another county.
Truthfully, I feel like this is physically aging my mother and how much stress that this has put on her. For that, me personally, I will go to war.
And for the last year, Brown has been fighting the good fight.
Hey you guys, it's Ansley from Coweta County, Georgia.
She's been in talks with lawmakers like Senator Greg Dolezal and has gone head-to-head with Georgia Power over its use of eminent domain and compensation.
They are using all of these different tactics to try to diminish the value of this home so that way they don't have to pay us fair market value.
In a statement from Georgia Power, the power company claims only 1% of its land transactions fall under eminent domain, and that oftentimes it offers property owners above market price for their land. And according to Georgia Power, it's in final negotiations with Brown's mom.
They are only saying that they're in final negotiations with us because they are threatening us with condemnation. They are telling us if we do not settle soon, they are going to take us to court and have a jury decide who gets this house and how it plays out.
Georgia Power says this is just one of about 20 to 30 other properties that will be demolished for this project.
Welcome back. So you may get audited by the IRS, but as of this moment, the agency is permanently barred from pursuing any claims against President Trump, his family, or businesses based on past tax returns. This is an addendum to Trump's settlement with the agency. As we told you yesterday, the Justice Department is also creating a nearly $1.8 billion fund for people who claim they were unfairly targeted by the Justice Department during the Biden administration. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Coughlin joins us now from New London, Connecticut. The president is en route to your location now, Katrina, to make a commencement address for the Coast Guard Academy. But help us understand what this IRS deal means and why this addendum may be fought.
I mean, Errol, this is extremely unprecedented. Since Watergate, it has been policy to audit annually each president's tax returns. Now, the only exception that I'm aware of is during a portion of President Trump's first term in office. So tax experts say that this is highly problematic. It also creates issues when they're assessing later taxes because they want to look back at prior ones. So like so many things with President Trump, this is an unprecedented situation here.
This is an outrageous, unprecedented slush fund that you set up. Simple question. Will individuals who assaulted Capitol Hill police officers be eligible for this fund?
Well, as it makes plain, anybody is
just let me know if they're eligible for the fund.
As was made plain yesterday, anybody in this country is eligible to apply if they believe they're a victim of weaponization.
Mr. Attorney General, let me ask you this. Are there going to be rules that say that if you've assaulted a Capitol Hill police officer or committed a violent crime, you will not be eligible? Why not make that a rule?
I expect that, because I'm not one of the commissioners setting up the rules, I expect that there will be rules.
You're appointing 4 of the 5 members, aren't you, Mr. Attorney General?
Pardon me?
You're appointing 4 of the 5 members.
I am appointing all 5 members.
You can certainly set up the rules. I would hope you would make a rule that anyone convicted of assaulting a police officer or a violent crime is simply not eligible. They should not apply.
Well,
let me ask you this, because you compared it to the Keepsiegel case. But I think you know full well that in that case, the settlement agreement was approved by a federal judge, including the payments to people who were not originally parties to the lawsuit. No federal judge has approved this fund, have they, Mr. Attorney General?
No federal judge did approve this.
So that's a big difference between this case and the case that you compared it to.
No, it's not.
Did a judge sign off on this case?
No.
A judge did sign off on the other one.
Yes, but your question was whether it's a big difference. It's not.
Of course it is, because that allows for an independent person to look at it rather than the
There was no independence. There was no independence. There was a single commissioner. A judge signed off on it. A judge had nothing to do with deciding the money.
There was a judge who looked at it and signed off on it. So to compare that case to this one is incredibly deceptive. You're not going to submit this proposal to any federal judge or independent.
There is no judge.
Any independent authority?
What does that mean, an independent authority?
It means not somebody who's getting to pick 5 of the members who was the president's former personal attorney. That would be somebody who would be independent.
I'm the acting attorney general, okay? The fact that I used to be President Trump's lawyer is just a fact, but I'm the acting attorney general. So don't say the president's former personal lawyer will do something. The acting attorney general will do something.
Mr. Attorney General, you are acting today like the president's personal attorney, and that's the whole problem. You have a whole banner of his face hanging over the Department of Justice, and you and everybody else walks under it, and you are acting like you're his current personal attorney.
You gonna always be this angry, you stupid lib? Yeah. I'm going to be angry until the day I fucking die. That half this country elected a lying, conning, grifting, raping, predator fucking shitbag who looted the treasury for billions of dollars so that he and his January 6th fucking terrorists can get richer while there are kids in this country who don't know where their next meal is coming from. I'm going to be rolling in my fucking grave because 60 years apart, minorities walked the same fucking bridge demanding the same fucking rights because rich, white, greedy shitbags who were forced to give them those rights in the 60s, the literal millisecond they had the power to do it, they yanked them back. You're not going to be able to cremate me because my urn will vibrate off the fucking shelf at the fact that there were people in my life that I watched cheer at the idea of immigrants being eaten by alligators in a fucking concentration camp in the Florida Everglades. And the same bigoted scum fucks were A-okay with the war their president started because the innocent people that were getting killed had a different fucking skin color. You can take it to the goddamn bank that I'm going to be angry about this forever. And I got to be honest, I'll judge you a little if you're not.
You think they're gaslighting the public, in a way?
They are, yeah. So if most of the climate scientists in the world were bankrolled by fossil fuel companies, do you think we would get an accurate picture of the climate crisis?
No.
And in the same way, they employ and bankroll, the AI industry employs and bankrolls most of the AI researchers in the world. So they set the agenda on AI research in soft ways, simply by funneling money to their priorities so that only certain types of AI research are produced. But they also will censor researchers when they do not like what the researcher has found. And so I talk about the case of Dr. Timnit Gebru in my book, who was the ethical AI team co-lead at Google when she was literally hired to critique the types of AI systems that Google was building. She then co-wrote a critical research paper that was showing how large language models specifically were leading to certain types of harmful outcomes. And in an attempt to try and stop this research from being published, Google ended up firing Gebru and then fired her other co-lead, Margaret Mitchell, And so they control and quash the research that is inconvenient to the empire's agenda.
Did you have an example where this is happening to journalists as well, that are asking questions of their team members? I think I was watching a video of yours where there was a young man that was saying he had someone show up at his door, knocked on his door and asked for information, emails, text messages, and this person was from one of the big AI companies.
This was OpenAI started subpoenaing some of its critics, as part of what appears to be a campaign of intimidation, but also what appeared to be a campaign of fishing for more information to map out the network of critics further. But this was a man who runs a small watchdog nonprofit, and they had been doing a lot of work during that time to try and ask questions about OpenAI's attempt to convert from a nonprofit to a for-profit. Ultimately, OpenAI was successful in that conversion, but during the period where it was sort of existential for OpenAI to complete this conversion, there were a lot of civil society groups and watchdog groups like Midas who were trying to prevent the process from happening in the dead of night. They were trying to get more transparency. They were trying to have more public debate about this because it's unprecedented. And it was then that there was a knock on his door and he was served papers.
What did the papers say?
The papers asked him to reproduce every single piece of communication that he had that might have involved Musk. So this was like the strange paranoia that OpenAI had, that Musk was somehow funding these people to block the conversion. None of them were actually funded by Musk. So in this particular case, their request, he simply was just answered, I don't have any documents because this doesn't exist.
Austin Newsome has an unexpected new hobby.
What's the highest you've gotten?
Probably about 120.
Using a decibel reader to record the noise level of the trucks that now constantly move in and out of the data center construction site across from his Louisa County home.
Trying to get as much data as I can to show, the county what they say is everything is acceptable versus what it really is.
Since construction began across the street roughly 1 year ago, Newsome says his family's life has been turned upside down.
So this is just constant?
Yeah, all day, every day. And you can just see the haze of the dust floating through the air, and it never stops. And the noise that comes out of this place 24 hours. At nighttime is just a loud pitch humming, buzzing noise all the time.
Newsome shared this video with us that he said he captured April 24th at 3 a.m. He said it depicts disruptive overnight work at the Amazon Web Services data center on Jefferson Highway. Newsome said he bought this house 12 years ago because he wanted to live out in the country. And now he says nobody wants to buy it because of the data center across the street.
Every person that comes and looks at it like, oh, we didn't know it was across the street from a data center.
A few weeks ago, he actually filed a complaint with the county after large amounts of dust were spewing out of the construction site.
It was got to the point where you could barely see to cross the road.
Louisa County told me they did receive a dust complaint. When they came out here to investigate, they found the dust was associated with a utility project. I asked them if that utility project was directly related to the construction of the data center. They did not directly answer that question, but they did tell me it fell within the limits of disturbance for the construction campus. They then referred me to Dominion for more answers.
A spokesperson for Dominion told me they were doing work on a line feeding the Amazon Web Services campus, but that work was done within 2 days. The county says the construction company handling the project implemented dust mitigation techniques and is continuing to monitor conditions to ensure appropriate measures remain in place. Just after we left, Newsome sent us a photo of a truck spraying water on the road. But for Newsome, those mitigation measures are not enough. Now,
why are you acting like owners and treating me like an employee who has no agency and no right to pipe up? Who is in charge here? Is this really a democracy? I mean, those are the obvious questions that come to mind when you watch something like this. You're rolling, even during COVID, they at least tried to tell you that you were wearing the mask and taking the poison shot and jumping on one leg and whatever they were having you do that day, because of the science, They tried to convince you that you kind of had to do it because it was good. They're not even trying that now. And so you have to ask why. And again, it may be, just guessing, because they don't have to. Is building data centers the same thing as achieving dominance in this space? Maybe, maybe not. Might be the most lucrative part of the whole process for developers and for BlackRock, but is it actually the same as technological progress?
We are not alone. The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. It's got to be a record. The War Department says more files will be released soon. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside? Shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 types, 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talk to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
4 different species of aliens. Another scientist called them Greys, Nordics, Insectoids, and Reptilians. All of them have 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. Experts speculate the reptilians are scaly with long tails like a lizard. Insectoids look like a praying mantis. The Greys look like your classic movie alien, and the Nordics look like a regular Swedish guy, but 7 feet tall. We haven't seen the evidence, but Pete Hegseth says more evidence is coming, and there are a lot of believers in Congress.
I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion.
Releasing the files isn't easy. They've been hidden for years, and a lot of people want to keep it that way.
The problem we have right now is the deep state's fighting the president on release, and he kept his word, and I suspect some of our not so friendly comrades in some of our alphabet agencies are slow walking a lot of information. It's about power, it's about control, and that's kind of what runs Washington.
So why is our own government fighting so hard to keep these secret? Well, 12 scientists have either gone missing or died. Now, we don't know if that's related, but people are scared to talk.
One I thought was going to do an interview, and then a couple days before sent me a message saying, after further consideration and long talks with my wife, I decided I'd be forfeiting my life if I participated in your interview. And I thought that was like very unsettling message to get, obviously, but also very specific word choice, you know, forfeiting my life.
Dan Fair is the director and producer of The Age of Disclosure, the film that started to shake loose the UFO files. All right, Dan, what have you heard about these different breeds of alien life?
Look, a number of the people I interviewed in my film, senior intelligence officials, went on the record saying that there have been dozens of crashed craft of non-human origin over the years, and elements of our government have recovered those crashes, and they've gotten out of that technology of non-human origin, and in some cases, non-human bodies that were on these craft. A number of the people in my film go on the record saying that the bodies were not all the same type, meaning there were multiple species.
Were the bodies alive or were they dead?
The people in my film talked about events where they were dead bodies, they were deceased bodies.
Do you think January 6 rioters, those who were convicted then pardoned, do you think they should be eligible for this slush fund, yes or no?
I do not. If they have been convicted, I do not. If they engaged in violence against police officers, I do not.
Having been a victim myself of Arctic frost, I can say this. The Biden administration needs to be held to account, and everyone that colluded with them, whether they be in the government or whether they be private sector participants like Verizon.
I mean, the judge in this case basically said, this is corrupt. The judge said this isn't a real lawsuit because Trump is just suing himself. And if he gets away with it, with this slush fund from the IRS, he's going to do it everywhere. He'll sue every federal agency with some bogus claim. He'll settle out of court for billions of dollars, and that money will be used by him to try to curry favor and gain political influence.
no president has ever sued his own government for $10 billion. The president should not be able to direct his attorney general to pay out $1 billion, $1.7 billion in taxpayer funds without any review by a judge or any review by Congress. We have the power of the purse. We just need to exercise it.
We're not trying to give money to anybody who attacked a police officer. We're trying to give money, not give money, we're trying to compensate people where the book was thrown at them, they were mistreated by the legal system. Let's turn the page on this thing that we did under the last administration where we tried to throw people in prison because they had the wrong politics. Let's throw people in prison who broke the law. I think this fund is a good part of getting justice for the people who were wrongly treated.
What are your thoughts about this weaponization fund from the president at this point?
Yeah, not a big fan. And I'm not sure exactly how they intend to use it, but my understanding is that was just announced. And, but yeah, I don't see a purpose for that. I don't see a purpose for that.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune with that criticism. Before that, Vice President J.D. Vance actually defending this. And he went on saying, I just don't understand why we help some people who get arrested, but not rioters who tried to overthrow a presidential election. Protesters. This is, of course, I believe the same J.D. Vance who said, oh, no, we would never, the president, I'm sure, would never, ever pardon people that beat up cops. Well, not only did he do that, but he pardoned them, and now he's created a slush fund. Yes, you've got to assume a $1.8 billion slush fund for people that beat the hell out of cops. Why do we say that? Because Donald Trump was asked, Mr. President, is this going to be even for people who beat the hell out of cops? And the president said, oh, we're going to have a fine commission to determine whether these people, and including those who beat the hell out of cops, are going to get this money. I mean, Mika, this is just, again, it's just so extraordinarily outrageous.
So this was like the strange paranoia that OpenAI had, that Musk was somehow funding these people to block the conversion. None of them were actually funded by Musk. So in this particular case, the request, he simply was just answered, I don't have any documents because this doesn't exist.
Do you think the people building these AI companies believe that the outcome is going to be all good now? Do you think they think that it's going to serve everyone, it's going to be the age of abundance, everything's going to go well? What do you think they believe? What do you think Sam believes?
So this is so funny, is such a core part of the mythology that they create around the AI industry includes the belief that it could go very badly. It goes hand in hand. Like, they need that part of the myth in order to then say, and that's why we need to be in control of the technology, because that's the only way that it's going to go really, really well. And Altman has said publicly, the worst case, lights out for everyone. But best case, we cure cancer, we solve climate change, and there's abundance. And Dario Amodei, same kind of rhetoric. It's like, worst case, catastrophic or existential harm for humanity. Best case, mass human flourishing. So this is like two sides of the same coin. Like, they have to use both of these narratives in order to continue justifying an extremely anti-democratic approach to AI development, where there should not be broad participation in developing this technology. They must be the ones controlling it at every step of the way.
Sam Altman did a tweet saying, there are some books coming out about OpenAI and me. We only participated in 2 of them. One by Keech Hagee, focused on me, and one by Ashley Vance on OpenAI. He went on to say, no book will get everything right, especially when some people are so intent on twisting things. But these 2 authors are trying to. You quote retweeted that tweet from Sam Altman, and you said, the unnamed book, Empire of AI, is mine. Do you believe that tweet from Sam Altman was in reference to your book?
100%, because there's only 3 books coming out about him.
And he'd caught wind that your book was coming out, and...
He knew my book was coming out because I had contacted OpenAI from the very beginning of my process and said, I'm working on a book now, will you participate in it? And actually, initially, they said yes, even though... So My history with OpenAI, I profiled the company for MIT Technology Review. I embedded within the office for 3 days in 2019. My profile comes out in 2020. The leadership are very unhappy. And in my book, I actually quote an email that I received that Sam Altman sent to the company about my profile saying, yeah, this is not great. And from then on, the company's stance to me was, we are not going to participate in anything that you do. We are not going to respond to anything, any of the questions that you receive. And this was, you know, this was things that they explicitly articulated. It wasn't like me inferring. So I had a colleague at MIT Technology Review that also covered AI. And at one point, OpenAI sent him this press release being like, we would love for you to cover this story. And he was like, I'm really busy. Will you send it to Karen? And they were like, oh no, we have a history, you understand.
How does a CEO of a major company get fired by the board because board members, there's a quote in your book on page 357 where you say about Ilya saying, I don't think Sam is the guy who should have the finger on the button for AGI. Now, I ask myself this question. You know, I work with lots of people here. We have 150 people that work in this business, and those people know me best.
Yeah.
They see me on camera, they see me off camera. So if they said that we don't think Stephen is the right person to host the Diary of a CEO, for example,
yeah,
it would take a lot for them to say that.
Yeah.
They must have seen some shit off camera for them to go, we don't think he's the right person to be on camera.
Yeah.
Or for whatever reason. And in the case of AI, which is much more consequential than a podcast that is, you know, filmed in my old kitchen, it almost sends a chill down one's body to think that the co-founder of a business has gone to the board and said, this isn't the guy to lead this consequential
And it wasn't
technology.
just Ilya. Mira Murati then also said, I don't think Altman is the right guy.
And then they both left later.
So then Altman comes back, and lo and behold, Ilya never comes back.
Well, a new data center could be coming to southern Indiana.
Data center is such a huge topic right now for many communities. Critics worry it could demand too much power and water. Supporters say it'll close the county's funding gaps there in southern Indiana. The 549-acre site would go right here on this map, as you see here. This is just north of Madison, Indiana, in Jefferson County, Indiana.
And this is a satellite view of the airfield at an old Army shooting range. That's where our Ian Hardwick and photojournalist Jessica Farley met the farmer who's making the data center deal and taking questions.
When people ask questions, it's because they care.
Here at Jefferson Proving Ground, an old Army munition site, you might get directions from Daniel Ford. Of the 3,600 acres his family owns here, he wants one of the world's largest data centers built over 549 acres, over the old airfield.
Two of my sisters are two of the closest residents to this, and they're not moving.
Ford can't say yet which company will operate the planned center, but he's promising about $60 million in annual tax revenue for Jefferson County. Right outside of Main Street, Madison, Indiana, the county is looking at a bridge-shaped hole in its budget, saying after SB 1 passed, it's been squeezed a little tight. The
let's just play a little of it. If you want, I can give you a quick while we're looking for it. Or
yeah, no, let's
okay.
Slap
sure.
on some headphones.
Yeah,
Let's listen to this.
Hey, that's no problem. That's no problem. I can build it in Texas. I can build it in Jacksonville, Mississippi.
But why, if it's such a good business, would you be asking taxpayers to help pay for it without giving them equity in the company? Are you giving taxpayers shares?
No, the investors get the shares, but here's why they would do it.
Why would the taxpayers have to? I mean, in other words, if you want to start a business, but why am I, as a taxpayer, forced to pay for your business? I don't get it.
Well, let's forget about data centers. Let's go any manufacturing. Let's say you're going to build an aluminum sheet manufacturing facility.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the government there and say, look, this is going to huge capex huge capex expenditure. I'm going to hire 2,000 people. I'm going to build a community center. I'm going to pay a lot of tax on the profits in your state when I sell the aluminum. And I'm going to hire all these people who they will also pay tax. And we will build a school because our workers need a school, and. What can you give me to incentivize me versus the state right beside you, which is willing to give me an incentive package?
No, I understand. I understand that you're gaming a system in place. You didn't come up with this, but
No,
I'm just trying to understand. So the trade typically is jobs, okay? But these projects don't actually.
Well, no, it's also jobs and taxes because you're going to
and taxes.
Yeah.
But but then you're getting a tax break. So that doesn't really make any sense.
Only up front. Tucker, welcome to America, buddy. This is how it's gone on for 200 years.
Okay, well, I don't know. Lots of bad things go on for a while. But I think at some point it's worth assessing, like, why are we doing this? So
you are
on the
fair
job
to do that. You're doing it because there's a competition.
Well, I run a couple of businesses, and we're not getting any tax breaks. I think they're every bit as virtuous as data centers, but I'm not availing myself of that, and no one's offered. And I wouldn't take it anyway, because it's not the job of taxpayers to subsidize a private business.
It's a fair comment, but my job is to create a data center, create 2,000 jobs for long term and 10,000 manufacturing at the beginning or construction. And I'm obviously looking at multiple sites, and this won't be the last one I build.
May I ask, 2,000 jobs? Okay, so relative to the size, the physical size of the project, which, as you noted, is multiple times the size of Manhattan, and the power draw at peak, this data center, your projections, will consume about as much energy as New York City does. But New York City provides almost 5 million jobs, and this project, by your own description, would provide about 2,000 jobs.
Your projections will consume about as much energy as New York City does, but New York City provides almost 5 million jobs, and this project, by your own description, would provide about 2,000 jobs.
Don't worry, though. The president himself can handle a lot of this health stuff himself. He does appear really focused on it in a very specific way. Headline: Trump bought stock in drug maker as his government boosted its obesity drugs. Just before taking unprecedented action to boost the flagship obesity drug of the drug company Eli Lilly, Trump bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in Eli Lilly. This happened while he's president. Joe Biden didn't trade stocks while he was in office. Barack Obama didn't trade stocks while he was in office, but Trump is apparently trading stocks while he is in office. And since we got his financial disclosure about those stock trades late last week, right, detailing this bizarre and incredibly energetic stock trading that the president has been doing while he has been president. Now, with each passing hour, we're getting more and more reporting coming out about how his stock buying as president tracks with things he's doing as president to boost the value of those stocks. I mean, it's just incredible. So in January, Trump buys hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in NVIDIA. Then a week later, his Commerce Department approves the sale of NVIDIA chips to China. Also in January, Trump buys between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of stock in AMD, which is another chip maker. 1 week after he buys it, his Commerce Department approves AMD doing business in China as well. Following month, in February, Trump buys millions of dollars worth of stock in Dell. Dell Computers, right? Dell Technologies. 9 days after he buys millions of dollars worth of stock in Dell, Trump veers off script in a speech in Georgia to tell the crowd literally, quote, go out and buy a Dell computer. Then in March, he buys up a whole bunch of stock in a company called Thermo Fisher. Repeated purchases of Thermo Fisher. Judd Legum at Popular Information reports that Trump repeatedly buys up Thermo Fisher stock. And then he goes and visits Thermo Fisher on a presidential visit. And on this presidential visit to Thermo Fisher, he praises the company repeatedly as an incredible company. He says, as president, that he wants other pharmaceutical companies to start working with Thermo Fisher. He buys their stock, and then he goes out and boosts the company as president. Judd Legum also notes that that same day, March 11th, same day as the Thermo Fisher visit, that same day, Trump bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in Apple. And then that same day he bought the stock, he did another event where he singled out Apple and Apple CEO Tim Cook for praise. Apple, a great company. Then after that, Trump buys between $50,000 and $100,000 of Micron stock. Okay? Between $50,000 and $100,000 in Micron stock. The very next day, he calls into the Fox News channel and tells them, Micron, it's one of the hottest companies. Then it's Palantir, CNBC reporting. Trump makes 7 separate purchases of Palantir stock, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Palantir stock. Then he gets on Truth Social and praises Palantir Technologies. Great capabilities and equipment. He literally even posted the stock ticker abbreviation for Palantir right after he bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of their stock and got online to boost it, giving people the stock ticker abbreviation to make it easier for them to go buy some Palantir, to boost the value of the stock he just bought before he said this online.
President Donald Trump has rejected another proposal from Iran because there was no guarantee the country would give up its nuclear program. And things are heating up in and around the Strait of Hormuz. In the past 48 hours, an Indian-flagged ship was sunk off the coast of Oman. Another vessel was seized off the UAE coast and taken to Iran. And the U.S. Navy remains on high alert as tensions continue to escalate. It comes as Iran is grappling with overflowing oil supply as the U.S. tightens its blockade.
There's no activity there. They're having to ration electricity. And we're even seeing these weird oil slicks in the Gulf as if they're dumping oil.
Meanwhile, officials in the UAE have announced they're building a second oil pipeline to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. After 2.5 months of war with Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices and tight supplies are about to get even worse. Fox 26 business reporter Tom Ziska says energy experts believe global inventories that have helped cushion the pain are close to critical levels. Tom.
Caroline, the basic math looks like this, sounds like this. The world consumes about 100 million barrels of oil every single day, while the war has blocked about 14 million barrels of oil and refined products from getting to the market every single day. The difference between those two has been made up in excess inventory in the form of strategic oil reserves and private storage in tanks and ships that are now being emptied bit by bit. Domestically, we've got about 216 million barrels of gasoline available to us. That seems like a lot, but 190 million barrels is considered critical. After Hurricane Ike back in 2008 here in the southeast and the Gulf area, storm damage pushed us below 180 million barrels. It caused widespread shortages. Now, since the start of the war, our gasoline inventories have been reduced by 16%, diesel fuel down by 18%. Experts say that is unsustainable.
While we still have several hundred million barrels of gasoline and diesel inventory, a lot of that inventory is tied up in refinery operations, or it's in the pipelines, or it's at the terminals. So not all of it is available to dispense to the consumer.
Meanwhile, to the Middle East, where the Trump administration says it's ready to strike Iran again if Tehran remains unwilling to budge on its nuclear program.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks joins us now with the latest from Tel Aviv. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a new threat overnight, warning the United States and Israel against launching a fresh bombing campaign. The IRGC said in a statement, quote, if the aggression against Iran is repeated, the regional war that was promised will this time go beyond the borders of the region, and you will be dealt crushing blows in places you do not expect, and you will fall into the abyss of defeat and destruction. The threat comes as President Trump says he was just an hour away from deciding to strike Iran earlier this week and is giving the regime a few additional days to reach a deal.
How close were you to striking Iran?
I was an hour away. We were all set to go. You're talking about yesterday.
Yes.
We were going to be striking it would have been happening right now. Yeah, it was all done. The boats, the ships are all loaded. They're loaded to the brim. And we were all set to start.
As for the possibility of an agreement, reports indicate there are still serious gaps in the positions of the United States and Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about this process yesterday.
We're locked and loaded. We don't want to go down that pathway, but the president is willing and able to go down that pathway if we have to. So what we've done is tried to be as clear as possible. What are our red lines? What are the things that we're willing to be accommodating on? And what are the things that we absolutely must have? And as the president has said ad nauseum, and I think I've said it a lot too, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports continues to put economic pressure on the Iranian regime. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper described the current state of play in the Gulf, with the shaky ceasefire still in place.
The ceasefire continues, and consistent with the president's direction, we've established a highly effective maritime blockade of Iran. To date, we've turned away 88 ships. There has been zero trade into Iranian ports and zero trade out of Iranian ports, squeezing Iran economically and creating powerful leverage for the ongoing negotiations.
Overnight, the Israelis held a 5-hour cabinet meeting as officials here believe the war could resume any day.
Hello, my name's Courtney Wild. When I was 14 years old, I was abused by Jeffrey Epstein. He abused me until I was 17 years old. What happened to me was terrible, but what happened after that by our own government changed my life just as much. I came here today to ask for one simple thing, to make sure this never happens again. I filed a case under the Crime Victims' Rights Act because government secretly made a deal with Jeffrey Epstein. They signed a non-prosecution agreement. They made the deal behind closed doors. They never told me, and they never told any of us. Instead, they sent letters telling me to be patient, even though they knew the case was already over. For years, I believed there was an investigation happening. There wasn't. When I found out the truth, I went to my lawyer, Brad Edwards. He took my case in 2008, and he fought for me against the government for over a decade. We wanted to do the right thing for all victims. Together, we wanted answers to a simple question: how could this happen? We had to fight all the way to the 11th Circuit, which took years to get the emails between the government and Jeffrey's lawyers to help us understand what happened. When we finally got them, they showed something I will never forget. The government wasn't trying to negotiate with Epstein's lawyers. It looked like the government was trying to make him happy. They were trying to make sure that the punishment they were going to give him was okay with him. It seemed like they had forgotten that there were 40 of us kids who had been abused by him. I was so confused because where I come from, if you commit a crime, you go to jail. I have never heard the feds of letting you help them decide which crimes they're going to charge you with, or if you're cool with how long you're going to spend in jail. But I thought, what do I know? Maybe that's how it works for rich guys. That's how it did work for Jeffrey Epstein. Finally, after 10 years of fighting, in 2019, a federal judge finally ruled that my rights and that the rights of other victims were violated by the non-prosecution agreement. But there was nothing that could be done about it. There was no remedy. I just want to say it again. I'm sorry, I have to. The court found that the government violated the law and nothing happened. That means the law, the Crime Victims' Rights Act, 18 U.S.C. 3771, does not matter. And if the law has no consequences, it doesn't protect anybody. I was lucky to have a lawyer willing to fight for me for almost a decade. A lot of victims won't find that, especially in this case where everybody made us feel like we were crazy. So I'm asking you to fix that. Please fix the Crime Victims' Rights Act so it could actually help victims in the future. I have my own ideas, and my lawyers have more ideas, but I really hope that if nothing comes of this, we can finally get the legislation right. There needs to be a clear definition of what it means to meaningfully confer with victims. I'm still not sure what that actually means, but I know it never happened for me.
It is absolutely clear that this administration is doing everything that they can to try to kill and bury this investigation. You know, it's worth noting that there is a primary tomorrow in Kentucky, and Donald Trump and his allies are waging the most expensive primary in the history of the United States against Thomas Massie, who has been one of the most vocal in calling out the cover-up of this case and who helped to sponsor the discharge petition. And then the president himself went after Lauren Boebert, one of the other signatories, because she supported Thomas Massie in his primary. The president has taken action now to retaliate against every Republican member who has supported the disclosure of these files. Todd Blanche is trying to tell the public that this case is over and closed when there's clear evidence in the files that they have released that there is still investigations that must proceed of criminal conduct, including by some of the individuals that have been called before the committee for potential rape and sexual assault of women. Leon Black, in particular, has been named in the files in multiple places, and there is a civil suit that was filed previously against him for potential sexual assault. And so it's very clear that this administration wants to move on. The president himself has said that. Todd Blanche has said that. They are trying to bury this case. And so our questions for the administration and former administration officials like Pam Bondi are about who are they protecting? Why are they trying to bury this case? Why has Donald Trump stopped the investigation of this case? Why was Pam Bondi complicit in the breaking of the law for 6 months and failing to comply with our congressional subpoena of the files? And why did she and now Todd Blanche fail to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act? Clearly, they are covering for someone at the bequest of the White House, and we want to know why.
Now to the crisis in Cuba. The U.S. ramping up the pressure on the government as crippling blackouts and a teetering economy have sparked unrest on the island. And tonight, what sources are now saying about a possible indictment of the 94-year-old former president, Raul Castro. Here's ABC's Alex Prochet.
Tonight, the island nation of Cuba largely in the dark as its energy grid is on the verge of collapse. Extensive blackouts across the country have sparked protests. Cubans banging on pots and pans, shouting, "Turn the lights on." Many without power up to 22 hours a day, as a U.S. oil blockade and sanctions have caused a crippling energy and fuel shortage, part of an ongoing pressure campaign by the Trump administration.
They need help, as you know, and you talk about a declining country. They are really a nation or a country in decline, so we're going to see. We have a lot to talk about on Cuba.
This week, during an unannounced visit to Havana, CIA Director John Ratcliffe delivering a message from the president that the U.S. is prepared to engage with Cuba on economic and security issues, but only if Cuba makes fundamental changes, claiming the island nation is a safe haven for countries like Russia and China. The Cuban government insists it poses no threat to U.S. national security, nor will it allow actions against any other nation to be carried out from Cuba. The U.S. State Department has offered Cuba $100 million in humanitarian aid, an offer Cuban officials say they are considering, though U.S. officials tell ABC News there are disagreements as to how that money would be distributed.
And sources tell ABC News that the U.S. could announce an indictment of former Cuban President Raul Castro in the coming days, a move that would further escalate tensions between the two countries, though Castro is now 94 and stepped down as Cuba's Communist Party leader in 2021.
So then Altman comes back, and lo and behold, Ilya never comes back. So his concerns about the fact that Altman finding out would be bad for him manifested. He ended up not coming back, and Miramati then left shortly thereafter.
Quite a lot of these people leave, don't they? OpenAI.
They do. So if you consider one of the origin stories of OpenAI is this dinner that happened at the Rosewood Hotel, which is a very swanky hotel right in the heart of Silicon Valley, that was one of Elon Musk's favorites whenever he was coming up from LA to the Bay Area. And there was this dinner that was there where Altman was intending to recruit the OG team that would start OpenAI. So he's kind of telling everyone, you might have a chance to meet Musk because Musk is going to come to this dinner, and he cold emails Ilya and gets Ilya to then come and Ilya specifically wants to come because he wants to meet Musk. And he also emails all these other people, including Greg Brockman, Dario Amodei.
These are all people that ended up working at
and they all, almost all of them, not every one of them, but almost all of them end up working at OpenAI.
And leaving.
Almost all of them end up leaving, specifically after they clash with Altman.
And Ilya, he left and launched a company called Safe Superintelligence.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's an indirect if I've ever heard one. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? If someone like co-founded this podcast with me and then they left and started a podcast called Safe Podcasting, I'd take that as a slight. I'd have people knocking on their door and asking for their texts.
One of the things that is happening here is it is not a coincidence that every single tech billionaire has their own AI company.
Mm-hmm.
They want to create AI in their own image. And that's why they keep not getting along. And in fact, it's not just don't get along. They end up hating each other after working together, and then splinter off into their own organizations. So after Musk leaves, he starts XAI. After Dario leaves, he starts Anthropic. After Ilya leaves, he starts Safe Superintelligence. After Mira leaves, she starts Thinking Machines Lab. They want to have control over their own vision of this technology. And the best way that they have derived from their experiences of trying to put their vision into the arena is by creating a competitor and then competing with OpenAI and with all of the other companies out there.
Do you think some of these AI CEOs realize that they are quite literally summoning the demon, as Elon said 10 years ago, but they don't really care because being the person that summoned the demon makes you consequential and powerful and historical, even if the outcome is potentially horrific?
Being the person that summoned the demon makes you consequential and powerful and historical, even if the outcome is potentially horrific.
I'm just very concerned about replacing people, their purpose for living, which is to create, with machines. That seems like hell to me. How is this capitalism? If taxpayers are paying for some of it, how is that capitalism? That seems...
Oh, I think that's no different than building an apartment building downtown in Austin. You can get incentives for that too, and that's just part of how it works. You can debate
How is that capitalism? How is that free market? If politicians are handing you other people's money to do it, how is that capitalism?
Even though the use and the outcome and jobs and everything else we're talking about is unknown? Or would you prefer the United States of America and their allies in North America had more compute power to develop AI?
It depends. Whichever makes the United States happier, freer, and more prosperous, I guess, is the answer.
Well, you know what the answer to that is? What do you think it is?
I'm not sure that we know. I know that reducing this question to a competition between the United States and China is a very quick way to derail people from the core questions, which revolve around whether or not it's a good idea. The two examples you gave are examples of a machine replacing human labor and doing a better job than any person could do.
Oh, Tucker, that's horrible.
Which is great.
Well,
but hold on.
That's my point.
Well, I know it's your point. I know it's your point, and I can see the marvel of it. There's more economic power now than the United States. Probably has more military power. I didn't want either of those things to happen. I'm a little bitter at the American business community, which allowed them to happen, but they happened, so here we are. There's not much I can do about it. My focus remains, however, on is it good for the United States? Is it good for us? Does it make people happy? And I don't understand what people are going to do for a living if machines are going to be able to do most things that people currently do better than people do them. Like, what is the answer? And a lot of people are honest enough to say nothing. We're just the oligarchs are gonna send out checks to everybody, the bread and circuses, and everyone's just gonna kind of stay home and be obedient. But I don't know that is a good idea, and I don't know that it works.
To what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.